This is a fictional incident which begins in a chemical warehouse at a factory. There are various chemicals and packing material stored in this warehouse. Normally, chemicals are stored safely in the chemical cabinet of the laboratory. One night, as a worker finishes his day's work, he doesn't store the chemicals away in the cabinet, but leaves them on the table to use again the next day. That night, coincidentally, an earthquake occurs. The chemicals on the table fall on the floor, and the containers are shattered. The chemicals spill from the containers, mix on the floor, and ignite. Other flammable chemicals ignite too, and the fire spreads from the laboratory to steel containers of toxic chemicals outside. "20 minutes after being dispatched, fire engines arrive and begin extinguishing the fire. Large amounts of water are sprayed onto the steel containers of toxic chemicals too. However, the heated containers are damaged and their contents spill out. The water mixes with the toxic chemicals from the steel containers and floods into the drains and gutters. The water also flows into emergency tanks, which prevent the toxic water from spreading, but the tanks reach their capacity and eventually overflow into the gutters and from there into the river. The firefighters extinguish the fire, but the chemical warehouse is destroyed. Toxic gas and smoke from the chemical fire spread to the surrounding residential area. Residents suffer eye and throat pain due to the toxic gas and fumes, leading to an evacuation of the area. But that is not the end of the story. The fish in the river start to die due to the toxic chemicals flowing in. The contamination of the river became apparent, leading to restrictions of water usage for drinking and agriculture. The fire, which began with a human error and an unlikely coincidence, not only damaged the nature and living conditions within its vicinity, but also affected the areas downstream. In November 1986, a chemical storage warehouse in Basel, Switzerland, located on the Upper Rhine River, caught fire. Toxic gas and fumes from the chemicals spread to the surrounding area. Massive amounts of toxic chemicals, including pesticide stored in the warehouse, flowed into the Rhine together with the firefighters' water. 11 days after the fire, the toxic chemicals reached the river estuary, 800 kilometers away in the Netherlands. This fire resulted in the death of many fish and eels, and required restrictions on water for drinking, agriculture, and for breweries. Severe damage occurred in Switzerland at the source of the fire, and also to the countries downstream, such as Germany, France, and the Netherlands. This accident prompted plants and chemical warehouses around the Rhine to build emergency tanks to prevent fire-extinguishing water from flowing into the river. In 1989, a household chemical and cosmetic factory in New Tredegar, UK, caught fire, producing toxic gas. Contaminated water flowed into the rivers, killing 17,000 fish. Drinking and agricultural water were also restricted. In 1996, contaminated fire-extinguishing water from a catastrophic fire at a storage facility in a port at Rotterdam, the Netherlands, also affected the lives of the surrounding population. In 1996, a herbicide and pesticide warehouse along the Meurthe River in France caught fire, and the fire-extinguishing water laced with pesticide flowed into the river, killing 1.6 tons of fish. Water restrictions and a prohibition on swimming and fishing were imposed. In 2000, a fire at a feedstuff factory in North Troy, Vermont, U.S., caused contaminated fire-extinguishing water to flow into the Missisquoi River, resulting in the death of 40,000 fish. In 2001, in Southend, UK, a warehouse storing toxic chemicals caught fire and contaminated fire-extinguishing water flowed into the river, wreaking tremendous damage on the ecosystem of the river.